Hi, welcome to Bloom Podcast. I'm Courtney. I am a mental health nurse turned life coach.
And I'm Sydney, a certified Canadian counselor. Together, we're going to be discussing all things mental health and counseling.
We hope you join us.
Okay, welcome everybody. So today I have the privilege of having Cheryl Ilov join me. So Cheryl is an author, a speaker, a physical therapist. She is a martial artist and so much more. She hosts her own podcast, the FemiNinja Project podcast, where she talks about overcoming obstacles and personal empowerment. And Cheryl and I have already been chatting, and it's already been a delight. So I'm very excited to have her on the podcast today. Welcome, Cheryl.
Well, thank you, Sydney. It's such a pleasure and an honor to be here with you today. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it is my pleasure. So, Cheryl, tell us, maybe if you want to start off just by telling us a little bit about your story and a little bit about your journey that's brought you here to now, that would be great.
Okay, wow, it's a long story. So I've been around a long time, so I'll try and just abbreviate it and give you the highlights. I am just an ordinary person. I was originally from a small steel town in western Pennsylvania, which is why I now live in Denver. I moved to Denver about 3 days after graduating college. I just wanted to see the world and seek my fame and fortune. And for some reason, I landed in Denver, mostly because I was a downhill skier and just wanted to ski the Rocky Mountains. I was a respiratory therapist, and I did that for 17 years. And then I ended up going back to school and getting my master's degree in physical therapy, even though I was told I was too old to go back to school by many people. I was also told that I wouldn't be able to do the work of a physical therapist because I was a chronic pain patient for 2.5 years. And for 2.5 years, I lived that life of misery and pain. And, I was in excruciating pain all the time. And I was finally told by my medical team that I would never have the life that I wanted and never have the life that I had before. I was a chronic pain patient. I would always be a chronic pain patient. And I should just start applying for disability because I was going to need it. And I was 36 years old.
Wow.
I hit rock bottom when I heard that, because it was like, who wants to live like that? And who wants that kind of a prognosis and that kind of a label put on them when they're 36? Yeah. And, I was a dancer. I wanted to go back to ballet class. I wanted to go back to Pilates. And one of my doctors laughed in my face when I told her that. Well, that did it. I went home, I hit rock bottom. And then a few days later, I had an epiphany. And I said to myself, this is on you to figure out. You need to figure out how to heal yourself, because not only are they not helping you, they're making you worse. And that was very hard for me to accept as a medical person. I mean, I was part of the Western medical model, and I couldn't believe that, I couldn't get help from the people that, this was part of my work. This was part of my work ethic. So basically, I fired my entire medical team, much to their chagrin, and I did figure it out on my own. I started teaching myself how to move the way we did when we were babies. We were talking babies before the recording. But when we were babies and very small children, nobody taught us how to move. They didn't give us little baby barbells and say, okay, now do all these repetitions and then put one arm here and one arm here, put your head here and twist your spine, and that is how you roll over in bed. No, we figured it out for ourselves. And that's exactly how we learned to move during, the time we became fully ambulatory and able to stand and walk and do everything that we wanted to do. And as we were learning how to move, everybody was applauding, oh, these wonderful milestones, you're wonderful. Everything we managed to do was just marvelous, until we got fully ambulatory. And then we went to school and we were told to sit down, shut up, and now you're going to learn. And prior to that point in our lives, we learned through self-exploration and through movement. And then from then on, we were told to sit. We were told when to go outside and play. Everything was more regimented, and that exploration, that spirit of, playfulness seemed to kind of go away. Well, So the good news is I did recover fully from that chronic pain injury once I stopped taking the medications and doing the exercises and stretches and stopped going to the doctors. And I added acupuncture. That's the only thing I did was my own movement exploration, acupuncture. I made a full recovery. I did become a physical therapist, and I graduated 3 months shy of my 40th birthday. So I guess I really wasn't too old. So that's my story. From that
Wow.
point on, that just launched me into an incredible journey and pathway of health and healing, alternative health and healing, exploring new movement modalities. Another tragic event got me into martial arts. But it's just been an incredible ride. And, you know, the whole time when I was going through the tough times, as difficult as it was, I just kept an open mind and started exploring alternative methods of doing things because the traditional Western medical model that was prescribed for me didn't work.
Mm.
So
Well, and it sounds like, you were really told some pretty devastating things. The piece about you're too old to go back to school, you're going to be in chronic pain forever, just accept that this is your life. Those can be pretty impactful things that people can say to us.
it's absolutely devastating. And, it takes away your hope. And I just had this conversation with a woman last night when I was talking to her for my podcast. It's a terrible thing to take away somebody's hope.
Mhm.
And once you can
Mhm.
show somebody who's suffering or who's struggling that there is light at the end of the tunnel, there are different ways of finding your path to healing. That little bit of hope just lights a fire underneath somebody and gives them that capacity to be able to explore and try new things. And it just sets you up for success rather than setting
Mhm.
you up for failure.
Yeah, I mean, when I think about in the counseling space, creating hope with someone is a huge piece of what makes counseling impactful. If someone has no hope, they're not going to have the motivation to try anything, to work towards a different mental health state or to work towards anything because that hope is kind of that ignition.
Without hope, what's the point? What's the
Yeah.
point in even trying if somebody is telling you, well, okay, you can try this, but it's not going to work. You're going to be like this for the rest of your life. I mean,
Mm.
that was pretty harsh to hear,
Yeah.
but at some level, I have to say, I'm very grateful for this person who said it to me
Mm.
because once I did become a physical therapist, and I have to tell you, I was not a very good, and I'm using air quotes, good physical therapist in the traditional realm because I saw what the shortcomings were when I was on the receiving end of it.
Yeah.
And then when I was on the end of a practitioner, I realized what the shortcomings were. And I just kept remembering what that woman said to me. And I said, there's got to be another way. So
Mhm.
after 2.5 years of working in the traditional field of PT, I just said, there's got to be a better way. So I walked away and I opened my own practice specializing in Pilates-based rehabilitation and move and conditioning. And
Mhm.
then I added another skill to my skill set called Feldenkrais. So it gave me the motivation to really explore a lot of different things so I could help people who have been told the same things that I did. And
Mm.
basically, my practice was full of people who were, physical therapy, they failed physical therapy, or they
Mhm.
were just labeled as hopeless cases.
And it sounds like you took that and you ran with it in the direction that they needed.
Well, I understood their pain, and I mean their literal and figurative pain.
Yeah.
And, I told them right off the bat, I said, I am not going to fix you. I'm not going to heal you, but I am
Mm.
going to give you the tools to heal yourself.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
again, there was that hope. And I got to tell you, my very first client, and to this day, I still love her to death. But when she came to me, and I mean, she was just really in bad shape, in incredible pain, had been going on for years, doctor after doctor, PT after PT. And, I started working with her and I said, this is how we're going to do it. You let me know if it doesn't work or, we can always change gears. And it wasn't until about the fourth or fifth session that she came to me with tears in her eyes and she thanked me and she says, oh, I am so grateful to you. You were my last hope.
Oh.
And I looked at her and I said, thank you for not telling me that. Because I don't think I could have handled the pressure.
But the fact that, she was at the end of what felt like the end of the line, and I've known so many people who have been at that end of that line and thought, well, if this doesn't work, there's nothing left. And to feel like they're at the end and then to have that hope restored, even if it's not fully there, that glimmer can be all we need to hold on to.
Mm-hmm. And you hear those words and, it just sounds like, a choir of angels begin to sing.
Mm-hmm.
And then, for me, especially because it happened another time a few years later, it was like just this emotional flood. And, I remember this, woman looked at me and she said, I really think we can help you with this. And it was something else that I had been struggling with, and it's too long to go into, but it was something that was pretty horrible. And I just looked at her and I said, okay. And then I went home and my husband said, well, how did it go? And I couldn't even get the words out. I just started sobbing. I said, she thinks she can help me.
Yeah. And those words can be so transformational, especially when you've heard there's nothing more we can do for you. Or the next step from here is something really drastic.
Yeah, or more medications.
Yeah.
And okay, I know you're having these side effects, but we've got medications to counteract those side effects. And then I'll have to think about the side effects I'm going to have from the medication it was just crazy. And, I think my message and something I'm very passionate about is just being able to be impactful, to help people understand that they can heal from anything and everything, and that our bodies have an incredible capacity to heal, our bodies and our minds. As long as we give them the right tools and the right environment, healing will happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think sometimes when we're in the muck and the mire of the stuff that feels like it's impossible to heal from, those words can sometimes cause disbelief, right? To hear, well, yeah, I'm sure you can heal, but I can't. And I think, again, that's where that hope piece is so important, to feel like, no, it doesn't matter what happened. There can be renewal from it in some way.
Mm-hmm. And what really bothered me was people. I felt like they were very patronizing. The people in the medical profession who were quote unquote helping me, and that's one of the things that I was always very careful with when I work with clients, and I still do. I closed my practice almost 5 years ago, and now I just reopened it again and relaunched it, partly online and partly in person. But very careful of the language and the words that I would use to talk to people. Because I know how much it impacted me when I was on the receiving end of hearing some of these things. And I think in a lot of ways that, the experts that were working with me were just trying to be honest or trying to reassure me, like, oh, no, you're not crazy. You're just going to live like this for the rest of your life. What's the point? It's
My
really,
goodness.
it's just nuts. Yeah. So, words matter. Not only the words that you hear from the experts and the professionals who are helping you, but the words that you tell yourself.
Yeah, yeah. And I think when you're in those situations, sometimes those words that you hear from those professionals become your inner mantra. That inner self-talk just absorbs that piece that says, there's no hope for me. This is how it's going to be forever. There's nothing left they can do for me. And it can be so hard to to flip that script.
Exactly. And as you know, that neuroplasticity, we were talking about that before we began recording, and our brain is recording and listening to everything it hears. It's not saying, well, this is true or this isn't true. It's just recording it. So if we hear that mantra, those words over and over again, you're a chronic pain patient, you're a chronic pain patient, eventually we will believe it. Because what we believe is what we become, and then we believe it, we become it, we're stuck. We are a chronic pain patient. So if you listen to some of those words and say, no, that's not me, that's not my life. And that's basically what happened to me after 2.5 years. And when I heard that, it was like, no, I don't believe that this is what my life was intended to be. I believe that there's another plan for me.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to accept this. I deserve better. My husband deserved better. I didn't deserve to live like this. And that's when it was almost like it lit a fire underneath me. But I have to tell you the funny part, because one of the things that doctor who told me, to start applying for disability, she told me I would never be able to do my laundry and my grocery shopping all in the same day because the arthritis in my spine was so severe I would end up being bedridden.
Oh my goodness.
And 20 years later, I realized she was right. I couldn't do my laundry and my grocery shopping all in the same day because I was too tired. At least 5 days a week, I was taking a professional level ballet class. And 3 days a week, after ballet, I would change out of my leotard, I would drive across town, and I would take an 1.5-hour martial arts class.
That sounds like a little bit more than groceries and laundry.
Sounds a whole lot more fun, doesn't it?
Yeah. So it sounds like you've had this massive transformation. And you mentioned one of the things that was kind of part of that was this Feldenkrais piece and neuroplasticity. And I wondered if you might talk a little bit more about that part too.
Sure. Feldenkrais is an incredible modality. It's Feldenkrais, and if you want to look it up, for listeners, if you want to look it up, it's spelled Feldenkrais. I always tell people it's like Mickey Mouse, Mickeymouse. It's Feldenkrais. So that's what it is. And it is a highly sophisticated form of neuromuscular re-education based on the scientific principle of neuroplasticity, understanding that our brain and our bodies, our nervous system, are malleable, they're flexible, and they're able to change the way we move, sense, feel, and think, change our pathways and our habits of moving, sensing, feeling, thinking during the entire course of our lifetime. Well, when you hear this, you think, well, of course we can. That's a no-brainer, right? No pun intended. But even when I was in physical therapy school, and so that was probably about 25 years ago, so really not that long ago, we were taught that this miracle of nature, this neuroplasticity, disappears at the age of 14.
Wow, that's pretty young to be just that you're done learning, you're done changing.
Yeah.
Wow.
That we were so hardwired that, well, just forget it. You can't learn, can't teach an old dog new tricks at the age of 14. And this is something that Moshe Feldenkrais, the creator of this method or the developer, inherently knew. He didn't put it in those words, but he was a student of nature. He was a student of, he was a physicist. He was married to a pediatrician, so he was around a lot of babies and little kids and watched how they moved. And that's kind of the basis of how he developed this entire method. But it's not about, we have the capability to learn how to move and differently. And one of the key principles in Feldenkrais is to make yourself comfortable. How often do you hear that?
Well, I think of, anytime you go to someone's house, right? That's often what they'll say is make yourself comfortable, right?
Right. But for our own selves, when we're going to go to the gym or when we're going to do some kind of physical activity or we're doing anything, it's always work harder.
Mm-hmm.
No pain, no gain.
Mm-hmm. That's the first thing that came to my mind when you said when we go to the gym.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And, the more you hurt, the more virtuous you are and the more benefit you're going to get from your workouts. Well, that's not necessarily true. We have to be comfortable in our bodies, in our physical selves. And once we find that capability to make ourselves comfortable and we start moving very slowly in an explorative way, really paying attention to the way we sense ourselves in space, the sensations that are going through our body, the things that we're thinking and even feeling as we are moving in simple movement patterns, it just opens up neural pathways that we didn't even realize were there and available to us. And it all starts with making yourself comfortable. And when you can be comfortable in your body, you can be comfortable in your mind, your spirit, your soul.
And that's so interesting because when you think about people who are, at home at their most comfortable, oftentimes they're not in a way that is, they're not working out or they're not, having this aggressive improvement. Oftentimes the picture that comes to my mind is like somebody in sweats on their couch, right? Like that comfy, cozy piece.
Right. I love, the word or the term that you used, aggressive improvement. I think
Yeah.
that's lovely. I'm going to have to write that down, aggressive improvement, because there are ways that we can improve every single aspect of our lives in a way that is gentle and kind to ourselves. And that's when our nervous system is paying more attention. If we're uncomfortable, that's where our nervous system is paying attention to the discomfort. How can I get out of pain? This room is incredibly cold. How can I make myself warm? And we're perseverating at some level on that discomfort. But if you can say, okay, I'm going to prop myself up with these pillows, or I'm going to turn the heat up, or I'm going to loosen the waistband of my pants for those of us of, COVID weight. All of those little things, take your glasses off, make a really big difference so your nervous system goes, ah. And it's going from the sympathetic nervous system, which we've all been living in. I mean, we all live in the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight, all the time anyway. In our society, we're 24/7, all of the devices, go, 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 overstimulated. And then with the pressure and the stress of COVID the past 2 years, we were all in fight or flight. So how do you get from that sympathetic nervous system into the parasympathetic state where you can have that digestion, relaxation, ease of breathing, lower blood pressure, heart rate, and the ability to be creative is by making yourself comfortable to begin with.
And like my brain is just so stuck on that piece of if you're uncomfortable, that's all you're thinking about. Like it makes me think of, if you're walking with a rock in your shoe, it doesn't matter how small that rock is, that's all you focus on. So you're not focused on, enjoying that walk or taking in nature or being mindful about what's going on. Instead, you're so focused on that discomfort. And I think that is so interesting as a juxtaposition against really the way we see people improving or living their lives in our society. It is not comfortable.
And that is a beautiful analogy. I love that with that little pebble or the rock in the shoe. And I also love the fact that you managed to get mindfulness into that conversation. So that one's for Courtney, okay?
Her favorite.
I know it's her favorite. I just absolutely loved that episode. I giggled all the way through it. I just thought it was wonderful. And then going back to your analogy of the rock in the shoe, if we wanted to, or if we wanted to take the time, we could stop, sit on the ground or sit on a park bench, take the shoe off and get rid of the pebble.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, some of the discomfort that we're dealing with, we can't get rid of it quite that easily.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit more, we have to be a little bit more strategic in how we do it because we can't even see the pebble.
Yeah.
We feel it. We know something's wrong, but we can't even name it. And even, when I had my chronic pain syndrome, it was almost like shameful, because if I had broken my arm and I went to the emergency room, it's like, well, look at this. I'm really in a lot of pain. And you could see the bone sticking out, and blood squirting or whatever. It's like, oh yeah, you really must be in a lot of pain. This is what we're going to do. We're going to help you, fix heal the bone, blah, 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 blah. But when you complain about pain and there's nothing physical that they can see, there's nothing physical to identify. Mine was actually a soft tissue disorder. It was a dysfunction. And once I, managed to get away started to move differently, the pain started to subside along with the help of the acupuncture. But if you can't see something, then a lot of times you get that look like, well, is it really that painful? Do you just want some medications? You start to get that invalidation.
Yeah. And I think that is huge because, I used to say to my clients who had anxiety, depression, that, who would say, well, it's just anxiety or it's just depression. And I would say, if you broke your leg, you wouldn't say, oh, it's just a broken leg. But when we have an invisible illness, whether it's mental health or chronic illness, those things that are not, glaring wounds, it is so easy to be invalidated, to be dismissed, and to be dismissive of ourselves.
Well, we doubt ourselves when it comes to that point. It's like, maybe I am crazy. Maybe I do have an alternative motive. Maybe, there is something that happened to me when I was a child that I'm not admitting to, or I don't remember. I mean, I can't tell you how many people would say, you need to really search your memory. And it's like, well, I remember I almost fell out of a roller coaster when I was a little girl, but, I didn't, and it turned out okay. Is this what you're talking about? And you start to almost look for things and almost make things up. I mean, it's just a vicious cycle. So if you can find that ability to say, stop, drop and roll, stop, let's just figure this out, take a few moments, and try and be, I hate to use the word analytical, but to be a little bit more, what am I really feeling? I mean, and what is really happening, and believe me, when someone has pain, physical pain, there is a reason for it.
Well, and I think, reminding ourselves, why would I make that up, right? Why would I make up having physical pain, or why would I make up having anxiety and depression? No one would want that. And kind of ground ourselves back in that piece of, you wouldn't choose to have this, and you wouldn't, why would you make up something so debilitating, so uncomfortable?
I know, but on the other hand, I've heard that so many times from, practitioners, not only as they were talking to me, but as they were talking about other clients or, patients when I was in the traditional physical therapy world. And it was like, I would get so deeply offended, for the person they were talking about. It was like, you can't say that. You don't know. And one of these days, you might be that person, and then you'll understand, and you may regret having put those labels on somebody else, because you'll know what it feels like.
Yeah. Well, and I think, we can be so hard on ourselves. And I come back to that idea of make yourself comfortable. And I think that sometimes that's hard, right? It's hard to validate ourselves in that piece of, yes, what's going on is meaningful. It does matter. It does deserve care, whether it's physical pain, whether it's emotional trauma, whether it's depression, anxiety, whatever it is, it deserves care. And I think along that same idea is that piece of, it can be so hard to then say, and I deserve to make myself comfortable.
Exactly. You hit the nail on the head. That is it. I don't deserve to make myself comfortable. There's some kind of, I don't know if there's some kind of pride or some kind of, I don't know, glory in suffering. It's like, I need to suffer. And it's like, no, you don't.
Mm-hmm.
But, even when we were little, it's just like, well, if you're uncomfortable, it's just you have to be that way for a while.
Mm-hmm. So what does that look like if someone was to make themselves comfortable? What would that look like for someone who was maybe listening today and they were thinking, okay, I can do that. I want to make myself comfortable. I want to try this out. What could that look like?
One of my favorite things to do, and I discovered this on my own, nobody told me about it, when I had my incapacitating back pain, is I would lie on the floor, which at that time getting on the floor was in itself, excruciating, but I did it. I would get down on the floor and I would scooch my butt up against the couch. So it was kind of pressed up against the couch, and I would just put my legs on the couch or an ottoman. You can do that. So, and lying down and put like a small pillow behind my head. And in that position, my legs were able to get really relaxed and heavy because the couch would support the weight of my legs. And I could sink into the floor and my back was comfortable. It was like sitting in a chair position, but the chair is on the floor. So just start in that position with your legs on the couch, or an ottoman, something like that. So you would be in a 90 degree position of your feet to your knees, to your hips, a little pillow underneath, and just focus on your breathing. Focus on your breathing, and then start to feel yourself, your body just sinking into the floor. Feel the support of the couch just cradling your legs, and you'll start to feel the muscle tension begin to just let go, because we all carry way too much muscular tension when we don't need to. So that's one of the first ways that you can really make yourself comfortable, soften the lights, no TV, no noise, no phone, no computer, and just listen to the sound of the silence.
That sounds very mindful. I was thinking, right, when you were saying that, I thought, oh, this is such a great mindfulness practice. I love it.
I
But
love mindfulness.
well, and I think, that speaks to that mind-body connection, right?
Exactly.
When our body can be comfortable, our mind can relax a little bit. And they kind of reciprocate on each other, right? So as your mind is relaxing, your body's relaxing, and vice versa.
Absolutely. And I still keep thinking about that wonderful episode that you and Courtney did about mindfulness, because I was in her court for a very long time, mindfulness. You say the word and I would automatically roll my eyes. It was like Pavlov's dogs. But it wasn't until I started doing my Feldenkrais training that was like, oh, I can do this kind of mindfulness because I'm paying attention to my movement patterns and I'm feeling what's going on as I move. I'm somebody who cannot meditate. I can't sit there and do the and I think you guys were even talking about that on that episode.
Yeah.
But I can do it as I move. And that's
Yeah.
basically what Feldenkrais is. It's meditation through movement. And oftentimes if I'm doing either a Feldenkrais lesson for myself, or if I'm even doing some martial art, katas or kihon is what we call it, moving really slow, after about 10 minutes, I stop and I go running to my notebook and I start writing notes, because that's when I get a lot of my creative bursts, my creative juice really start flowing, because, I'm not concerned with other things. I don't have that chatter in the back of my mind that's always going for all of us.
Yeah, your mind has room to breathe a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it sounds like kind of that meditation through movement, that piece of just really paying attention and kind of coming back to like really resting in, we know what feels comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Is that am I kind of getting the crux of it there?
Kind of. With Feldenkrais, so we do have movement lessons. They're called Awareness Through Movement lessons. And they're usually about 45 minutes. They're classes, they're group classes where the practitioner will guide the class, through certain movement patterns. We also have what we call functional integration, where they're hands-on, where the practitioner is physically moving the client through certain movement patterns based on what they're seeing. And, it's a beautiful dance between two nervous systems. I mean, I wouldn't say this to a lot of people, but that's basically what it is. It's two nervous systems communicating. For example, if you've ever touched a baby and held a baby, you're communicating. The baby can't talk to you, but yet you communicate very, very well through touching each other. Same thing if you touch, a dog or a horse. Horses are wonderful to get that kind of proprioceptive feedback. But it's just being in the moment of what you're doing and in the movement, and everything else kind of fades away. And you were talking about, just going for a walk, getting back to nature, which is a wonderful way to calm your mind, body, and spirit. And as you're walking, just to really becoming one with nature. It really hurts my heart to see people walking. I live in Denver. Go to the Rocky Mountains, are gorgeous, and to see people in the mountains with their, headphones on and listening to, it's like, and they're looking at their phone, and it's like, no, just no, look around you. The power of nature and the healing power of being one with nature is just amazing. Even if it's just a local park, if you live in the city and you go to the park, just walking around the trees and the grass and being outside is incredibly powerful.
Yeah, I think even just that piece of making that time for yourself and taking yourself out into nature, it kind of, for me, sounds like it comes back to those pieces of you as a priority, right? If you are making yourself comfortable, if you are saying what's going on with me right now matters, making time to do those kind of things is kind of another step in that direction.
Exactly. It's self-care.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, I talk to obviously a lot of people like you do in, doing podcasts. And a lot of the people I've interviewed talk about doing, art therapy. And, you're not going to be the next Picasso. But even just one lady said she was just playing with paints. And another one was playing with crayons. Another one said that she would get out and dig in the dirt because she loved the feel of the dirt, in her hands. Yeah. Another one was, Play-Doh. So any kind of that tactile sense, any kind of sensation that is pleasant to you. One woman liked to bake. It was that, working with the dough, working with the food, smelling those scents as the food was cooking, anything that really is pleasurable to you.
Yeah. And I think that even kind of connects with when you're enjoying where you are and what you're doing, you are in that comfort zone, right?
Absolutely.
Because I think when you said make yourself comfortable, my brain automatically goes to clothing, Yes. My brain automatically is like taking off those tight jeans, whatever that looks like. And just in chatting with you, it's like, it's kind of for me challenging my ideas of how do I become comfortable more than just what I'm wearing. Or I think for me also, my spouse likes our house a lot colder than I do. So for me, comfortable is warm. But I think it's kind of challenging that idea for me of what comfort even is. Because I think it sounds like there's all these different ways we can make ourselves comfortable, and we can lean into that comfort beyond I guess, like that physical initial piece that comes to mind for me.
I love that you're thinking about that and that you're saying that, because it's a challenge to be able to make yourself comfortable. And there are so many different ways that you can do it. One of the things, my husband used to travel a lot before COVID. He was in medical sales, and when he was gone, it was like, oh yay, no television. And, especially in the winter, I would just sit on the couch, and there would be, no TV, no radio, no nothing, just me, the dogs, and the fireplace.
Oh, that sounds so wonderful.
Isn't it? I mean, it was a wonderful way for me to decompress and, just feel grateful.
Mm-hmm.
And I know being grateful is a very powerful tool as well, but I can't just sit down and say, okay, I'm going to feel grateful now, or I'm going to write what I'm grateful for. But when I can create an atmosphere that I don't even have to think about it, it just pours out of me, this gratitude and, feeling of well-being and happiness.
Yeah. Well, and I think for me, that comes back to, you know, that aggressive improvement in my mind is like, okay, another thing on the checklist is a gratitude list. Got to wake up every day and list my 5 things I'm grateful for. And I like that idea of just that gentleness that just is coming out from this moment of comfort.
And let's face it, we're not taught to be gentle with ourselves.
No, no, we're not. And it's hard when we see all these things in media, in even in like self-help books and self-improvement books. There's so many pieces that are, here's all the ways you're wrong and here's
Oh,
how you can be right.
yeah. Oh, that's terrible. And here's another little piece of Feldenkrais. I just taught a lesson at my dojo. My martial arts I was covering for my sensei. He was out of town. And there were only 2 people that showed up, and I knew that they would be willing to play with me. So I actually did a Feldenkrais lesson with them, and it was just fabulous. And teaching them, at the end, we talked about ways we could apply this to martial arts, and it was really wonderful. But there's so many principles of Feldenkrais, but one of the main ones that just was mind-boggling to me is that in Feldenkrais there is no right or wrong, good or bad, better or worse, just opportunities to learn.
Oh, I love that. I love that idea of reframing things as this is how things could be like an opportunity to learn rather than, well, this sucked and I need to be better.
Yeah, yeah. That one more thing we can beat ourselves up about, that I did
Yeah.
something wrong. I wasn't good. I mean, I didn't even do my therapy well. Oh my gosh, I'm a loser. And
Yeah.
it's like, no,
Yeah.
it's another opportunity to learn and grow and change in a way that maybe you want to change or maybe you don't.
Yeah. And that idea of, if you're coming at it from this attitude of learning, I think that shifts even just how you have that dialogue for yourself, but also kind of how you approach it.
hmm
And just that shift in and of itself, I think could be so huge for someone.
And learning and self-love. Self-love is huge.
Mm.
And no judgment.
It's very mindful.
How many times have we used that word so far?
Listen, I just love it. I can't help myself.
I know. It's just, well, it's the key to everything.
I definitely think there are a lot of people that when they incorporate it, it unlocks a lot of things for them.
So I'm just going to throw out another word that might be more appealing to somebody who doesn't like the word mindfulness is awareness.
Yeah. Yeah. To bring that awareness to that self-talk, to that current moment, to that comfort.
hmm
That's
hmm
fantastic. Okay. Well, Cheryl, if there was something maybe that you really wanted to leave with our listeners, or a few things, what kind of sticks out for you?
The main thing is to remember that you have your body, your mind, you have the capacity to heal from anything. Sometimes the experts don't always have it right.
Mm,
And you basically are your own expert. You know yourself better than
yeah.
anybody else. And if something's not feeling right or somebody's trying to take you down a path that you just don't feel comfortable
Mhm.
doing or going, then just say, no, thank you, this isn't for me. And there are so many different modalities out there, so many healing modalities, alternative health and healing, to keep an open mind and don't stop looking. There is something out there for you to help you on your healing journey.
Yeah, that is fantastic. Well, thank you, Cheryl. It has been a total pleasure to have you. And I feel like I'm just still thinking about making yourself comfortable. I feel like I'm going to be percolating on that for a few hours at least.
Well, I think one thing that you can do is tell your spouse to turn up the heat.
Well, I think the temperature I wanted, I don't think is comfortable for him.
You'll have to come into a compromise, a comfort zone,
Yes.
right?
Yes, I know. Such is our life. A
I
continual
understand,
battle of
yes.
temperature.
Yes, I understand that very well.
Okay. Well, thanks again, Cheryl. It has been a complete pleasure. And if anyone would like to reach out to Cheryl, you can go and talk to her on the FemiNinja Project on wherever you're listening to this. She's on there as well. Or you can reach her on her website, thefemininjaproject.com. And we'll also link to that in our show notes. Okay. Thanks again, Cheryl.
Sydney, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to having you and Courtney on my show soon.
Oh, wonderful. Okay.
Thanks for listening. You can follow us on our socials, thebloom.podcast on Instagram and Bloom on Facebook. Rate, review, share, and subscribe today.
This is not intended to be taken as medical advice. Please seek medical help for any mental health needs. If you are experiencing a crisis, please go to your nearest ER.